what I like about Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like if you
Yeah,
if you roll, there is no way you can say I'm not immersed. I mean,
sure.
and I'm that metaphor. I'm yeah. How can you translate that
Yeah, well,
into
so what does it take? Why does that exist, right? Why does that exist in jiu-jitsu? And I would argue that part of it is you're not there by accident. It's hard to get there. There
mm,
are barriers between you and actually showing up to jiu-jitsu. There always are,
yeah,
right? There's
yeah,
always a million other things, right? So if you show up, it's because you made it through those barriers and you're invested in that community and that moment. You're there to train, right? You show up ready to train.
yeah,
I think that's harder to do sometimes in emergency medicine. I mean, I think back about like the sim I did when I was training, and like, maybe you work until 3 a.m. the night before, and then your simulation is 10 a.m.
yeah,
And you're like, okay, well, sometimes you got to do that, sure, because you got to train tired, just like you got to fight tired. But, you know, are you actually setting people up for success like that? Or are they exhausted? Like, are there 10 other things and this was their only time off and they're trading this for pieces? That's hard to do.
yeah,
So some amount of resistance is probably good because you want people to buy in. Too
yeah,
much resistance is probably bad.
yeah,
And then I think there's also the esprit de corps, right? Like when you show up, everybody else at that gym is also trying to get better.
yeah.
Nobody's there to screw around, right? And like it's not that you don't have fun because it's always fun.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah,
I mean, even in the middle of a roll, you stop for a second. You're like, "Oh, good job!"
yeah,
Like, what did you
yeah,
just do? How, like, okay, cool, let's go back to it, and then you like immerse yourself back in it. But
yeah,
there's this playful aspect. Like everybody's there, everybody's a learner, everybody's a learner. That's, I think, honestly, a big one, right? Because when you're training, there's this kind of illusion that there's a finished product, a cadre of teachers, and then students, and you're on the other side of this divide. I imagine it would feel a lot different if everybody was doing these cases together
yeah,
and you're trying to learn together as a group, right? Like that, I don't know many groups that do that. I think we try to mimic that sometimes. If we're on shift, I'll have my residents or in the registrars, right? I'll have my registrars or residents like I'll be like, okay, your job is to come up with a case that you saw that's hard and try to stump me with it. And we're going to put me in the hot seat and we're going to play this game together. Right. You sort of like say we're all on the same page learning. Um, I don't know. I think those are components of it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have a perfect recipe. But I think investing in the culture ahead of time,
yeah,
creating a sense that we're all learners, that there's no endpoint, creating a space where it's the expectation you show up ready to work, and then celebrating a culture when you do learn things and removing all of the obstacles about like nonsense, right? I think those are pretty clutch
yeah.
components of that.
So and then for now, this is a totally other question I had prepared because the
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu we will talk hopefully later for some time. But
totally.